The salmon course had just been served when my mother stood up, tapping her champagne glass with a spoon. The reception fell quiet as guests turned to listen, expecting a toast. "I have something important to address," Mom began, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "I've just learned that Ethan's parents gifted the newlyweds a lake house." "How generous." My stomach clenched. We'd told my parents about the lake house yesterday, in private, specifically asking them to keep it confidential. The property was a modest 2-bedroom cabin on Lake Harmony that Ethan's parents had owned for 30 years. They decided to transfer ownership to us as a wedding gift.
"However," Mom continued, smiling at the crowd, "I think we need to discuss fair distribution."
My daughter Vanessa has 3 children who would benefit far more from a lake house than 2 newlyweds who, barely have time to use it. I believe the lake house should go to Vanessa's family. The room erupted in confused murmurs. I felt Ethan's hand find mine under the table and squeeze. My sister Vanessa stood up, beaming. "Mom's right. It's just a vacation home. You two will be busy with your careers. My kids need a place for summer memories." "Stop overreacting, Jenna." I looked at Ethan. My husband of 3 hours sat perfectly still, his expression neutral except for a slight tightening around his eyes. Then, with deliberate calm, he reached for a leather folder that had been sitting beside him all evening, the one I thought contained our honeymoon itinerary. He opened it and pulled out a document. "Mrs. Hartford," Ethan said, his voice quiet but carrying across the silent room, "what you've just announced is not a family discussion. It's an attempted theft of real property." Mom laughed nervously. "Don't be dramatic, Ethan. We're family. Families share." "Families ask," Ethan corrected. "They don't announce." He held up the document. "This is the deed to the Lake Harmony property. As of 2 p.m. this afternoon, it was legally transferred to Jenna Morrison and Ethan Morrison, joint tenants with right of survivorship. The transfer is recorded with the county. The property is ours." He pulled out another document. "This is a letter from my parents, signed and notarized, explicitly stating that the property is gifted solely to Jenna and me, with no claims or obligations to any other parties." "That's unnecessarily formal," my father said, standing. "We're family. Surely we can come to a reasonable arrangement." Ethan's father, Richard, stood from his table. He was a retired real estate attorney, and when he spoke, people listened. "Gerald, there is no arrangement to be made. The property belongs to Jenna and Ethan. What your wife just proposed is called interference with property rights. It's actionable." "Actionable?" My mother's voice rose. "Are you threatening to sue us?" "I'm informing you of the law," Richard replied calmly. "You've just publicly announced, in front of 200 witnesses, that you believe property belonging to my son and daughter-in-law should be given to someone else. That's not a suggestion. That's an attempt to misappropriate assets." Ethan pulled out his phone. "I've also recorded this entire exchange, starting from when you tapped your glass. California is a 2-party consent state, but this is a public venue with no reasonable expectation of privacy. The recording is legal." He played it back. Mom's voice, clear as crystal. "The lake house should go to Vanessa's family." Vanessa's face paled. "This is insane. You're ruining your own wedding over a stupid cabin." "You're ruining our wedding," I said, finding my voice. "You stood up at our reception and tried to claim our property. What did you think would happen?" Ethan's mother, Catherine, stood next to her husband. She was a surgeon with steady hands and a steadier demeanor. "Patricia, before the wedding you called me. You suggested that the lake house was too much for young people and that it would be better used by a family with children. I told you then that our gift was not up for negotiation. Did you think announcing it publicly would change our minds?" "I thought you'd see reason," Mom said, but her confidence was cracking. "Vanessa needs it more. Vanessa needs to provide for her own children," Catherine said sharply. "She's not entitled to property that doesn't belong to her, regardless of how many children she has." Ethan stood, still holding the folder. "I'm going to make this very clear. The lake house belongs to Jenna and me. It will never belong to Vanessa. It will never belong to her children. If anyone attempts to access the property without our permission, we will prosecute for trespassing. If anyone attempts to claim ownership or rights to it, we will pursue legal action." He looked directly at my mother. "Is that clear enough?" "You're being unreasonable," my sister said, her voice shaking with anger. We're family. This is how you treat us. This is how I protect my wife from people who think they entitled to what she has, Ethan replied. My Uncle Frank, Mom's brother, stood up. Patricia, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm standing up for my daughter. You're trying to steal from your daughter. Frank interrupted. For God's sake, woman, have some dignity. Sit down and apologize. Mom looked around the room. Guests were staring. Some were whispering. Her grand announcement had backfired spectacularly. We're leaving, she said stiffly. Come on, Gerald, Vanessa. If you leave, you're not welcome at any future family events, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Not holidays, not birthdays, not your future grandchildren's lives. If you walk out that door, you're choosing to cut yourself off from us, Mom froze. You can't mean that. Try me, I said. You tried to steal our wedding gift in front of everyone we know. You humiliated us at our own reception. Why would I want you in my life after this? Vanessa grabbed her purse. You're both being ridiculous. I'm leaving, then leave, Ethan said. But remember, you're leaving because you tried to take something that was never yours, Vanessa stormed out. My father looked at my mother, then at me. Jenna, your mother made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to our SVP, I said. This was calculated. She called Ethan's mother before the wedding. She planned this announcement. This wasn't impulse. This was strategy. Dad's shoulders sagged.
He looked at Mom. We need to leave. They left.
The room remained silent for a long moment. Then Ethan's grandmother, a tiny woman of 83 who rarely spoke up, stood and raised her glass. To the bride and groom, may you always protect what's yours and each other. The room erupted in applause. The DJ started the music back up. Slowly, the reception resumed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had broken. We didn't go on our honeymoon immediately. Instead, we drove to the lake house the next morning with Richard and Catherine. We need to secure this property, Richard said. Change all the locks. Install security cameras. Update the property records with your contact information. Make it crystal clear that this is yours. The cabin was beautiful cedar walls, a stone fireplace, a dock extending into the clear lake water. It was peaceful, perfect, and my mother had tried to take it from me. We spent the day installing new locks, setting up a security system, and meeting with the property management company that handled maintenance. Richard called his attorney to draft a formal notice that would be sent to my family, explicitly stating they had no claim to the property and any attempt to access it would be prosecuted. Is this overkill? I asked Ethan as we sat on the dock that evening. No, he said firmly. Your mother announced publicly that she wanted to take this from us. We need to protect it. She's my mother, I said quietly. She's someone who tried to steal from you, Ethan replied, at our wedding. That's not motherly behavior. That's greed. Over the next week, the fallout intensified. My phone had 47 missed calls from my mother. 63 text messages, emails, voicemails ranging from angry to weeping. Vanessa created a Facebook post, "When your sister values property over family." So disappointed in the person Jenna has become, the post got attention mostly negative for Vanessa once people learned the full story. Multiple wedding guests commented, explaining what actually happened. One wrote, "You tried to steal their lake house at their wedding reception. That's not valuing property over family. That's protecting yourself from thieves." Vanessa deleted the post. My Aunt Karen called. "Jenna, your mother is devastated. Can't you find a compromise?" "What compromise?" I asked. She wanted to give our property to Vanessa. There's no middle ground on ownership. Maybe you could let Vanessa's family use it sometimes? Karen suggested. Share it? No, I said. Vanessa stood up at my wedding and smirked while calling me overdramatic for not wanting to give up my property. Why would I reward that by giving her access? Because she's your sister. She's someone who tried to take what's mine, I replied. That's all she is now. 2 weeks after the wedding, my parents' attorney sent a letter. A letter, claiming that because they decontributed to my college education and helped with my car down payment when I was 23, they had a reasonable expectation that I would share family resources equitably. Ethan's attorney, Margaret Chun, read it and laughed. This is the most legally baseless document I've seen in 30 years of practice. They reclaiming your college education creates debt that should be paid by giving your sister access to your lake house. What do we do? I asked. I'll respond, Margaret said. It'll be brief. It'll be devastating. It concluded with a warning. Continued contact regarding the lake house would be considered harassment and would result in legal action. My mother's attorney never responded. A month after the wedding, I received a handwritten letter from my grandmother. Dearest Jenna, I've been thinking about the wedding situation. Your mother has always had trouble with boundaries and entitlement, especially regarding Vanessa. She treats you like an ATM and treats your sister like a charity case. What happened at your wedding was wrong. You and Ethan were right to protect yourselves. I want you to know not everyone in this family supports what she did. Your Uncle Frank and I have both told her she was out of line. She won't listen, but we tried. I hope someday you and your mother can repair your relationship, but if that day never comes, I understand. You deserve peace. Love, Grandma Rose. I cried reading it. Not because it fixed anything, but because someone from my family finally validated what I felt, that I hadn't been wrong to say no. 3 months after the wedding, Vanessa tried a different approach. She called Ethan directly. I wanted to apologize, she said. Mom pushed me into that. I should have stood up for you guys. Vanessa, Ethan said calmly, you stood up at our wedding and called Jenna overdramatic for not wanting to give you our property. You smirked. You weren't pushed, you were gleeful. I was desperate, she said. Your kids need a mother who provides for them, Ethan interrupted. Not a mother who teaches them they're entitled to other people's property. This conversation is over. He hung up. She didn't call back. 6 months after the wedding, we finally took our postponed honeymoon. 2 weeks in Greece, far from family drama and property disputes. When we returned, there was a package on our doorstep. Inside was a framed photo, a picture of my mother, Vanessa, and Vanessa's 3 children standing in front of our lake house. The house we'd locked. The property we'd secured with cameras and alarms. I called the property management company immediately. Did anyone access the house last week? No, ma'am. The security system shows no entries, but ... The manager paused. Someone was on the property. They triggered the perimeter cameras but didn't attempt entry. Send me the footage, I said. The video showed my mother and sister walking around the property, trying doors, peering in windows. They'd brought Vanessa's children to show them their lake house. When they found everything locked, they took pictures in front of it and left. That's trespassing, Ethan said, watching the footage. I called Margaret. What are our options? File a police report for trespassing, she said. Then file for a restraining order. They came onto your secured property after being explicitly warned not to. That's not a mistake, that's deliberate. We filed both. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. At the hearing, my mother's new attorney tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. My clients believed they had permission to visit the property, he said. It's a family lake house. It's not a family lake house, Margaret interrupted. It's private property owned by Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. The defendants were sent a certified letter explicitly stating they had no permission to access the property. They went anyway, with children, to take pictures in front of a house they don't own. She presented the cease and desist letter. The property deed, the security footage, the photo they'd mailed to us. Judge Whitmore, a woman in her 60s with no patience for nonsense, reviewed everything silently. Mrs. Hartford, she said finally, you tried to claim this property at your daughter's wedding. You were told explicitly that it was not yours and never would be. You were sent legal notice not to access the property. You went anyway. Why? I thought we could work it out, Mom said weakly. If Vanessa's children saw it, Jenna would understand how much they'd love it. So you use children as emotional manipulation tools, Judge Whitmore said flatly. You trespassed on private property, with minors, after being legally warned to stay away, in hopes of guilting the owners into giving it to you. Family should share. Family should respect boundaries and property rights, the judge interrupted. Restraining order granted. 3 years. No contact with the plaintiffs, no access to their property, no attempts to communicate through third parties. Violation will result in immediate arrest. She looked at Vanessa. Miss Hartford, you're included in this order. Stay away from your sister and brother-in-law. They've made their boundaries clear. The restraining order brought peace, but not healing. Christmas came and went without my family. My birthday passed quietly. When I found out I was pregnant 8 months after the wedding, I told Grandma Rose and Uncle Frank, but no one else. Are you going to tell your mother? Ethan asked gently. Eventually, I said. When the baby is born, maybe, if she's changed. And if she hasn't. Then our child grows up without a grandmother who teaches them they entitled to other people as things, I said firmly. A year after the wedding, we spent our first anniversary at the lake house. No drama, no uninvited guests. Just us, the water and the peace we'd fought to protect. We'd added a nursery. The baby was due in 4 months, and Ethan was building a crib from cedar wood cut from the property. Do you think about them? He asked one evening as we sat on the dock. Sometimes, I admitted. I wonder if Mom has any idea how badly she destroyed our relationship. If Vanessa understands that her entitlement cost her a sister, do you miss them? I thought about it honestly. I miss who I thought they were. I don't miss who they actually are. Ethan squeezed my hand. That's fair. When our daughter was born, I sent one text to my mother. You have a granddaughter. Her name is Sophie. If you want to meet her, you'll need to apologize for what you did and prove you've changed. Otherwise, stay away. Mom responded immediately. I'm sorry. Please let me see her. I wrote back. Sorry for what? Be specific. 3 hours passed. Then, for causing problems at your wedding. Can I meet my granddaughter now? No, I replied. You're not sorry for trying to steal our property. You're sorry you got caught and lost access to us. That's not the same thing. She called 34 times that day. I blocked her number. They tried to take our lake house, at our wedding, in front of everyone we knew. They thought being family meant they were entitled to what we had. They thought I'd give in to avoid conflict. They thought I'd sacrifice my boundaries to keep the peace. They learned differently. The lake house is ours. The boundaries are ours. The peace we've built is ours. And Sophie will grow up learning that love doesn't mean accepting abuse, that family doesn't mean tolerating theft, that protecting yourself is not selfishness, it's survival. My mother tried to take our lake house. We brought the deed, the lawyers, and the police. And we kept what was ours.